Hello, everyone. This is Leah Love. I'm back for another video. Thank you so much for joining me. I am a homemaker, a homeschooling mom, and I'm a conservative Black woman. And I love to share topics that are of most value to myself and my family, and as well as to my listeners. So I hope that you will enjoy this information and consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell. Also, I have a Patreon channel where I go into further depths as far as what it's like to live life as a new conservative, what it's like to be a Black person who has become conservative, and you're dealing with the angst and the problems of being harassed by family members and coworkers. And I offer a lot of content on there, things that I don't necessarily want to share on YouTube and argue with people back and forth. Because one thing people have told me in my DMs and inboxes is that they wish they had a supportive and comforting community where people could accept one another for their beliefs and not be harassed for once in their lives. So definitely check me out on my Patreon, which is called The Bus Transfer. I'll put the link below in the description box. But today I want to talk about information that was absolutely revolutionary and mind-blowing for me today. You may have heard me talk about this before in a previous video, but I really want to focus on some of the content regarding this subject and break it down over a course of a few videos. And this is the subject of a Black man named Manning Johnson, and he is a man who uh, passed away, I believe, in 1960 or 1959. But in 1959, he wrote a wonderful book, which will be shared here in the video that I'm going to share with you. And it's called Communism, Color, and Common Sense. And he broke down what's been happening in the Black community over the past multiple decades. Barely anybody's heard of him. Everyone I ask, have you heard of Manning Johnson? They say no. But he is a person who has really shared with us the communist agenda and the communist desire to use Black people to destroy America. So let's get started. So I'm actually quite pleased to introduce you to a Reverend Steve Craft of Camp Constitution. And he is a man who has been working tirelessly to get the word out about Manning Johnson. And he happened to find his book in the attic of one of his associates that had been written so many years ago. And when he found it, it simply changed his life, and he's been talking about Mr. Manning Johnson ever since. So what we're going to do is we're going to review a video by this reverend who is reading from the actual book and sharing his thoughts.
And let your viewers decide for themselves if this isn't happening as we speak. Moscow's Negro tools in the incitement of racial warfare places all of the ills of the Negro at the door of the white leaders in America. Capitalism and imperialism are made symbols of oppressive white rule in keeping with instructions from the Kremlin. To one familiar with red trickery, it is obvious that placing the blame for all the Negroes' ills at the door of the white leaders in America is to remove all responsibility from the Negro.
So I really want to share here just how profound I found this particular part of the message, because as an Afro-American Studies minor in the university, I was thinking back over all the courses that I had, and even the courses in women's studies that I had. And one of the things that's always railed against is capitalism and imperialism. And it's so obvious, it's so crystal clear that the agenda has been with university professors to tout the blessings and the benefits of socialism versus capitalism. because in their mind, it's capitalism that caused slavery rather than other conditions. And you may think at this moment that, oh, that's ridiculous. Of course, it's capitalism. But when you really learn the definition of capitalism, you'll realize that they have been using this for over 100 and something years to brainwash Black people to not only work against themselves, but then to push an agenda that they will carry on generationally without the professors having to do any more work. But yet we know they still do work. They're in most universities and colleges today, and they are preaching a communist and a socialist agenda by telling people that Black people will be better suited under communism. But this man actually went to Russia and was trained by communists, and we'll get into his story later. And he realized after being there under these, communist leaders, he realized that they didn't care anything about Black people. They considered Black people, quote unquote, cannon fodder.
This tends to make the Negro, 1, feel sorry for himself, 2, blame others for his failures, 3, ignore the countless opportunities around him, 4, be jealous of the progress of other racial and national groups, 5, expect the white man to do everything for him, and 6, look for easy and quick solutions as a substitute for the harsh realities of competitive struggles to get ahead.
So, if you can understand that this was written in 1959 from a Black man who was a former communist who actually went to Russia to be trained. And what's so clear, crystal clear here, is the way in which he describes the fallout from the narrative that has been sold to Black people over the past 60, 70 years. So you notice how he says that the narrative and the indoctrination creates a group of individuals who are victims, who feels that they are at the mercy and the whims of white people, despite all progresses in society, despite their PhDs and their master's degrees, despite all types of financial wealth, all types of million and billionaire Black people that have been created based on the principles of capitalism. And it also shows the level, the lower moral levels of that's kind of underlying what's going on with Black people, the jealousy, being jealous of other people, but yet not wanting to work for their own. Of course, we're not a monolith, and of course, I'm not talking about all Black people. But what's interesting is that he does mention that level of jealousy and that feeling that they do not want to actually put an effort forward because, of course, they have been taught that no efforts will relieve them of being Black. So, therefore, they can never get ahead. So, therefore, they just simply have to be haters. They have to be jealous of others and live in this state of mind, which is absolutely contrary to a conscious and sovereign being.
And I'll end with this. The result is a persecution complex, a warped belief that the white man's prejudices, the white man's system, the white man's government is responsible for everything. Such a belief is the way the communists planned it. For the next logical step is hatred that can be used by the communists to accomplish their ends.
And though we always think about Reagan and the era of Reagan, that was the dissolution of the communist regimes other than China, but we have to understand that it never went away. China is at the forefront of a communist mission, and they have been working very hard to combat and destabilize America. We had the whole debacle during the previous election where it was clearly understood that China was interfering with the election. And it's very interesting to know that now that we have school teachers in K through 12 as well as professors who are avowed communists and who are teaching our children in these public schools and in these colleges and making them communists, at the end of the day, when we look at BLM slash Antifa, they are avowed communists. They're avowed socialists, they are anarchists, and these are the children who have been rioting out in the streets for the past 4 months because they have been trained like an actual army, because they have been indoctrinated for years in communist ideology right under our nose without us having any sense of what was actually going on. And the story has been played out with the George Floyd and all of the other riots where they protect and immoralize criminals who have a criminal history, a criminal past, who are resisting arrests, and who are creating conditions where if they had simply complied, because they were clearly doing something that was illegal, if they had complied, they'd be alive today. But we have this army of youths out here who are true, well, pretend communists. And what's interesting and unfortunate is that they're playing by the playbook and using Black people and Black quote unquote struggles to initiate or to be the kindle plus the fire to their attempt to overthrow the United States government. And one thing that Black people don't understand, whether they're looking at Venezuela or Cuba or what even happened with the Russians, none of them are living great lives. None of them are able to, avail themselves of the greatness that is the products of capitalism. All these little anarchist kids are out here with these five to $1,000 iPhones, but they claim they want to be communists. They claim they want to be poor and broke. They claim that, socialism is the way. And we're here to share with you, as well as Manning Johnson, even from 1959, that this is all a plot to use Black people. So when you see the Antifa kids out here, mainly white kids, who are destroying statues and tearing up cities and burning and throwing cocktails and grenades and all kinds of madness at the police. But they're claiming that they're doing it all in the name of Black lives because they're using us. They don't actually care about us, but they're using us. And this is exactly by the playbook. And I'm so surprised that more of us have not realized this, because at the end of the day, when all this is over and it gets stamped out, guess who's going to be blamed? Black people, which is why the Soviet regime said that Black people are simply cannon fodder. They're not important. Let's just use them to constantly pick at the sore of America's history and past.
Ladies and gentlemen, what we see happening as we speak has been spawned from the pits of hell long time ago. And what we who love America, we black, brown, red, and yellow and white, that love our nation and believe in the word of God, must understand what the Bible teaches, that all have sinned, white, black, red, and yellow, and come short of the glory of God, because we have disobeyed God's eternal commandments. Because the Bible tells us that God created all human beings in his image and by his likeness, but then we disobeyed God's moral eternal law and fell into sin. And as a result, all of these evils, namely the main one we're talking about in color, communism and common sense, racism, has been used to destroy our great nation of America. And we must get back to our foundational principles of the Word of God and our United States Constitution given us by our founders. It was interesting.
And so I just want to end this video, this very instructional video, to share with you that there is more going on behind the scenes than we've ever realized before. But fortunately, it is coming to light. And what I would ask you to do is research Manning Johnson today, download his book, his PDF, and you will be floored by what he prophesied or what he shared, which was the communist playbook that was been put in place since the 1920s. And you're going to be learning so much more about yourself, about the agenda, and how we have been tricked and fooled all this time. And we've just been playing along like a puppet that's being handled by a puppet master. I'm Leah Love. Thank you so much for joining me. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing and clicking the notification. Also, consider joining my private Patreon channel, which is called The Bus Transfer. There, I go into further detail, things that I don't necessarily want to talk about here on YouTube, but are truly instrumental and informative, and is the real deal talk from a Black perspective, from a conservative perspective, from an American perspective. And it's open to all people. It doesn't matter the race. I'd love to see you there. Also, follow me on Instagram, Leah Love Online. I'm the same name on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. You can find me on all these platforms, and I look forward to joining you for another video. Take care.